There we go. Okay. And so do we have hands next? I guess if you could quickly speak about was there anything you wanted to add about the Scona Pool that Julie hadn't touched on yet?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have actually a double role here because I actually live in the Highlands and have for the last 30 years. And all of our kids learned to swim at Eastglen Pool. So I'm really, really aware of the area. I think where our take, at least right now, is, if you heard Don Iveson on the radio talking about his retirement, he said he'd hope his legacy of sustainable and walkable communities would stand the test of time. And I think this vote on this issue is all about that. And my history with this project goes with Scona Pool because that's where I work. And I have to tell you, it really was a kind of a really nice story that Julie talked about, because we learned, I think we grew tighter as a community in support of the pool, because our challenge was to increase usage of the pool and to just make it really viable. And through working with the community, that's what we did over time. The pool is, notwithstanding COVID, generally quite well used. And the example I have to give is last year I did scuba diving with my daughter, and we did it at Scona Pool because actually I didn't know this, but pool time is at a premium, and it's hard to get pool time in the city. And but I did it there and really enjoyed that. And I think together with our community, we really, really increased the usage of the pool, and it really became walkable and integral to the community. We also did fundraisers. Our Scona High School, the parents throw in $3,000 a year into the pool. And I think we really did what, as a community in school, what was asked of us by the city. And so ultimately, I think what I've learned of living here in Eastglen and at Scona is that our facilities right now actually provide a need that serves that city philosophy. And yet it seems that every couple of years that comes under pressure again, and that we have to justify that. And, because if I think about it, it's just a little bit of money, really, in terms of the grand scheme of the budget. And I think, what would the cost of mothballing be? If I think of it as an Eastglen resident, what would the cost of demolition of those buildings be? Because I think the overall total was about $1.2 million. And then I think that idea of walkable communities goes kind of out the window. Suddenly, places like Oliver and Strathcona, you've got to get in your car if you want to go to a pool. And so, so I think that what we're pushing a little bit, and that's where Rolling Miles Field is keep the pool open until you have a viable solution that meets the needs of walkable communities. And so Strathcona is working on Rolling Miles Field. And so I think I'll leave it at that, and certainly open to any questions on our experience. It was great working with Julie on these projects, by the way.
Is there anyone from Oliver? I haven't been able to see any names. Is there anyone from Oliver that wanted to quickly highlight their pool? Not sure if I'm just looking through the list here. I can give you guys a quick rundown. Essentially, Oliver, every pool is sort of its own unique thing in this case, whereas Scona and Eastglen are both indoor pools. The Oliver pool is an outdoor pool, and that's one that's also sort of on the chopping block as part of this upcoming budget adjustment. And so my understanding, and you can find more information about this at the Oliver Community League, is that the pool does have a high traffic. Like, I mean, they're one of the most densest populations in the city, and so they do get a lot of people that are actively using that facility as well. And they feel that it's just as important as any other pool, and would like to try to keep it open. So if you'd like to support them, please visit their Facebook and social media, or Facebook, sorry, and their website, where you can sort of find more to help them out. So as we sort of move down, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and Tony, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the pool closure, as well as any information you might be able to let us know about the fall supplemental budget adjustment that's coming up at this hearing on December 3rd, to maybe just give people a little bit of background as to its importance and sort of how we got into this position.
Terrific. Thanks, Mike. And let me start off. Welcome to everybody. I'm glad to see so many people here this evening. So to Scona, certainly some information on there, and to Oliver, but the one I'm most familiar with, obviously, is Eastglen and its uniqueness in being saltwater, which doesn't exist anywhere else in the city. And that's been one of the arguments or health benefits that the community has spoken to in the last number of times. It's the third time that administration has suggested the closure to a number of facilities in Eastglen. This is the third time that this has come around. So not unfamiliar with sort of the process that administration goes through and throws these things on the table, and then sees what council is willing to do or not do for this. So the first thing is the date of the public hearing, December 3rd. My suggestion is that you guys work as a group, both Scona, Oliver, and Eastglen, to come together as best a group as you can, and be there on the 3rd, as many as possible, because that makes a big difference to it, and working together, because all three are on the chopping block, and I guess the strategy behind it, arguing for one but not the other, really makes it awkward for council to support Eastglen but not support Scona, or not support Oliver, or vice versa. So coming together would be a good idea, and that's on December 3rd. Part of the considerations that they put forward, and I think Hans, you mentioned it, it's actually 1.4 million operational costs, and about 26 million in deferred maintenance that would need to be done. So those are sort of the two numbers that you're looking at. The 1.4 million, you're right, Hans, out of $1 billion budgets, doesn't seem like a lot of money. But these are things that the administration is charged with bringing forward, all sorts of different ideas of what could be reduced or not. And that's sort of an argument that obviously I'll be making as well. And that's the same argument we've made the last two times that Eastglen came up for closure, on the health benefits, on the quite a small cost for the benefits. Speaking about it in the new city plan of walkable communities, all those sorts of things. And I think someone, I can't remember who, mentioned the thinking has started to change somewhat. It went from small community centers, facilities, to large districts, the 4 in the city, and now the thinking is going back to that community-based facilities and rec centers and other things. So the thinking is going in that direction, but these are things that come up, and as you saw during the summer, grass cutting was used as a cost-cutting measure, which really didn't save a heck of a lot of money in the big scheme of things, and administration had to reverse that decision somewhat and start cutting grass again because of the consequences of it. So this is much more serious than that because of the health benefits, and I think that would be a good strategy in amplifying what the health benefits are of these facilities at this point.
That's excellent. And can you give us maybe a little bit more insight into that Walkable Communities initiative that was done? Like, what's sort of the philosophy behind that, and how can we sort of speak to that when we're submitting these letters or speaking at council?
Yeah, the new city plan, and I see a number of faces there that have gone through this. Hi, Ashley, and it's based on 15 minutes. So should be able to go to a rec center, go to a grocery store. All services should be within 15 minutes of you to walk to, and that sort of thing. So that's the strategy. But that the city plan is a long-term plan, obviously. This will take some time to develop out, but that's the strategy. That's the thinking. That 15 minutes should be the sort of milestone that you would need to go anywhere to get all the services that you need and staying within the community.
That's
So
excellent.
that's the rationale behind some of that.
Okay. Now I'm going to sort of shift to our next speaker, but before we do that, was there anything else you wanted to add or include at this point? We can certainly, after we sort of had a chance to talk to a few people, come back
Sure.
to you, absolutely. But if there's anything else, please let us know.
Well, I think some of you have been involved in the last 2 times that this came up. Someone else mentioned this coming up now is it's a adjustment to the budget. This isn't the actual big budget. This is the fall adjustment. So they're twice a year. You can go back in and make some changes, either up or down, eliminate or add, that sort of thing. So this budget here is the fall supplemental. And what to consider as well too, that sometimes what's not possible, let's say in fall supplemental, could be possible in the spring supplemental coming up. Won't be back into a 4-year budget until the end of this year. So there's a strategy that should be employed there, that if it looks like you might only be able to get the foot in the door for the fall and carry it over to the spring for better news, that's part of the strategy that I think all 3 groups should be employing. And that's something that we did with the previous 2 times that Eastglen was up for consideration for closure.
Okay, right on.
Perfect. Mike, I'm going to slide in here as well, just to give an update on where we are with chat. So it turns out to turn on the chat, we have to do it from outside of the meeting, which we can't. So new plan, once we have our speakers do their thing, I'll ask people at the bottom of your screen, there's a little circle that lets you called reactions. If you want to put up your hand, I'll see that your hands are up, and I will open up, unmic people with hands up to ask questions to any of the speakers or any of us.
Yes, and keep in mind, you will be speaking publicly, and we are recording it. So we just ask that everyone be respectful in how they approach the words they choose to use. So moving on, we're going to move on to our next speaker, which is our MLA, Janis Irwin.
Perfect. Thank you. Thumbs up that you can hear me okay. I'm just in my constituency office. Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Lots of thumbs. Yes, I will be fast. It's definitely an honor to join all of you here virtually on Treaty 6 territory. I want to hear from all of you. So like I said, I'll be brief. You know, I'm at my office, as I said, a few blocks from Eastglen Pool. And as someone who lived on 67th Street right by Eastglen Pool for a number of years, I just know how incredible of a community asset it is. And this is really about community, as has been said. It's about community, it's about sustainability, all words that are just magic to my ears. And I have to say, you know, I met with Joe and Helen and Mona and the members of the team who came together in the summer and advocated a lot. I met with them at my office here, I believe in August, and we had a good conversation. And I'm just really proud of the community members for the advocacy that they've done to date. And I know, you know, as Tony was just saying about the upcoming meetings, I know that there's going to be a good show of support there as well. And so, you know, while I may not have direct jurisdiction over this and the decisions being made, I'm certainly here to support and to work with City Council and to work with all of you to try to get the decision that's best for our community. So thanks for having me, and I will stop talking.
Thank you very much. Next off, for those of you who weren't aware, obviously this isn't the first time Eastglen has come across a closure, and so the person who's really been leading the charge in the past has been Joe Hewko. Sorry if I mispronounced your last name. Joe, are you here with us? I don't see your name in front of me, but if you speak up, you'll pop up. Joe?
He's here. I'll try to unmute him. Hey, Joe,
Okay.
you're muted right now. One sec.
Oh, there he is.
I'm unable to unmute Joe. Joe, can you unmute yourself, perhaps, if you hear us?
I think Joe will have to unmute himself.
Yeah.
You can only unmute him if you muted him.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's not
So,
letting me.
Joe, there's a little microphone button down on the bottom left of your screen, and it should have a slash through it. You should just be able to touch that, and it should unmute.
Maybe we've temporarily lost Joe.
Okay.
Should we move to our next speaker and we can come back to Joe? If we,
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me?
we got you now, Joe. Good work.
Okay, I just installed Zoom and I had the video, and then suddenly an update screen flashed up to update Zoom, and I couldn't get rid of it. And so anyway, now we're here. Anyway, thanks for inviting me. And yes, I've been involved with not only the last 2018, 2019, and now the current process. In 2015, there was city administration proposed to lease Eastglen to a private swim club. So that was probably a much larger process than any of them. And currently we're here again. And we took different approaches, different time, and we've seen the strategy within the city administration change over that time. We initially had more in the way of patrons to speak. In 2018, in 2019, it was a bit different. I just did a presentation, and we were really concerned about the whole basis. Even now this year, the strategy is pretty clearly from the city there. No matter who we talk to and what you read, it's all about the numbers, the finance numbers. And fortunately, that's my professional background. So one of our strategies this year will try and really talk to council and talk to administration at the public hearing, and perhaps educate them and enlighten them on the other factors that are really even more important, and why just this continued fixation on Eastglen's low cost recovery ratio is actually, it's invalid. You can speak with anybody professionally that is in that arena. And we hope that Councillor Caterina and council have been extremely supportive to us through these last times. Administration seems to be bent on closing the pool, and council has been the voice of reason and have not proceeded with the motion to do so. So we see this year a bigger challenge because we have the financial crunch that everybody's under. And we've noticed that administration and even some councillors have been much more forceful in terms of we need to get Eastglen off the tax supported tax levy. So that's been pretty forceful. So I think it's going to be a challenge, and that's one we think we're up to.
Excellent. And Joe, can you just, for the people who aren't aware, even in the last sort of 5 years, can you give us a quick update? Like how often and how frequently have you been sort of fighting the fight for Eastglen?
Well, again, in 2015, that was the proposal by city administration to lease the pool to Swimland. So I led that, organized everybody, and we talked to councillors, talked with Tony Caterina, we talked with others, and we were successful in that they backed off. There was enough pushback from that, and then city administration worked with us, and they undertook a project and developed, had a consultant. We have plans, and that was prioritized by Citizen Services as one of the priority items, and it took that time from basically 2015, 16, 17 to present it in the budget. And it was really shocking that it really never made it to council as a recommendation to proceed with the $7.8 million renovation, which would have greatly changed it and brought it to full accessibility standards. So
Joe,
that
I'm going to pause you there for a quick second, just because on our website, we do have a link to that master plan. It's called the Eastglen Leisure Centre Master Plan. Anyone can view it. It's a PDF. It's about 86 pages. So it's a bit of a dense document if you really want to get into it, but
well, I'm just giving you the thumbnail sketch because
yep.
Everybody and the city community and recreation facilities folks were working very closely. We worked very closely together, and then the climate changed in 2018. And once that was removed from the budget, then it became a much noticeably different environment. And so I was involved in 2018, and then in 2019 again. And that was the only one, rather than the 2018 approach, which was have the community speak, have the patrons speak. We were very well represented. But in 2019, I basically went alone at it and talked about a couple of things. One was we were very excited about an innovative approach to changing the conversation about Eastglen. We can't compete on the numbers, and nobody's believing the numbers. We started a project to work on a health and wellness orientation. And I also wrote to council about like what's in a name, because you talk about recreation and leisure, or do you talk about health and wellness? The first is an option. The second one, I was proposing to the councillor and city administration that we talk about an investment in health and wellness. So I thought that would gain some traction, but during this 2020, so this is now the fourth time I'm at this, there has been no mention about that period, except I was really encouraged when I read the Edmonton Journal today to see that the interim city manager talked about, the numbers part of it. And he said, but there's the physical and mental health of the patrons to consider. And if we do it right, we can do it. So I saw that as perhaps an opening. We've been proposing that, and I've since the beginning of 2019, that we can make a difference, we can change it. And actually, we can probably do that without spending any more capital on Eastglen. And if I can just make one more comment, Tony, just to clarify on that schedule, the $26 million of rehab work, because the operating expenses are not, they're minor, they're rounding. Eastglen is a very sound structure. Like Scona and Eastglen, if we talk about we needing to work together, there are some things we have in common as a strategy. There are many, many differences. One of them is the integrity of the building. Eastglen just needs minor work, whereas Scona has a 17 million price tag to it, and Eastglen is just $2 million. So that's one of the huge differences. And then one of the second ones that we need to work into supporting each other is that ultimately Oliver and Scona they will have larger complexes. If Eastglen is closed, it's done, period. I know there's some talk of selling the building and having another operator, an owner, and all of that, but that takes it outside of the portfolio. And we really need to work what we were talking about sort of the 15-minute concept and the city's #1 strategy, health and wellness and equity. And equity is the other issue. You cannot talk about Eastglen and you cannot talk about Bonnie Doon in the same voice, because Eastglen just doesn't have the amenities we do have are bare bones. And the patrons are happy with that, but we shouldn't be compared on a like-for-like basis. And those are the points that I'll be making, and hopefully make them strongly enough and clearly enough that it'll be so evident to councillors that they will support us again. And at some point, someone has to get the message across. Like I'm a finance person. Somebody has to get the message across to finance that you just can't calculate one ratio and say that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, my last question, I guess, for you, Joe, before we sort of, we'll sort of open it up for more discussion at this point. But have you been able to see an updated report on the state of the building of Eastglen? I know you've been doing a lot of research on this. So where is the Eastglen Pool now? Is there major upgrades or anything mechanical, technical, structural
Okay.
that you addressed?
I read through the city budget documents, and it talks about, in that number, Tony, 26 million, 17 million is Skona, 2.2 million was Eastglen, but it talked about those numbers were from 2014.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Some of the work might have been done. And secondly, as part of the master plan, the architect that we worked with, if you look at that straight, he's no relation to me, but we have the same last name and he's from Vancouver. But one of the things he mentioned was, the numbers that were, outdated. And he said the city was scheduled to do another assessment in 2017. So whether that was done and it's just not reflected in the budget documents, or whether, there was, it was just felt, the ultimate decision would be closure. So why do it? But somewhere that's the age of those numbers. So yeah, that's the amount of research I was able to do. And this has come up, we've only had, since the budget presentation, we've only had since the 18th or something like that. So again, we're, life is a blur, and it's sleepless nights and a lot of work to do.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Thank you very much for your time and your dedication, Joe. All that information you provide us has been very helpful. And we look forward to helping out and working together as we sort of move through this. So we are going to sort of open it up for questions at this point, and just so we can maybe stay on point as well, like a lot of as we're sort of moving forward and trying to learn more, a lot of this is more just information gathering. We're trying to get a better understanding of how important Eastglen is to people. Trying to also get a sense of what the longevity of the pool would look like, and also too, as a long-term strategy, because obviously every year we don't want to have to keep trying to fight to keep it open. So as we sort of spend these next sort of 20 minutes, because I am going to try to keep this at an 8 o'clock thing, I guess we're just going to kind of open up the floor to see if any one of you wants to speak to any one of those things. And it can be anywhere from maybe a past experience you've had if you've been part of a community group that's gone through this, or part of one of the past Eastglen Pool initiatives, as well as if you use it all the time often, like field story as well. So as Tim mentioned, just sort of throw your hand up, and we will do our best to not technically error out on you.
All right, Mike, I'm actually going to start with the first question to you. And what can I do as a citizen of the community to make a difference here? What should my takeaway be at the end of this meeting? Is there anything I can do personally to help?
That's a great question, Tim. Yeah, absolutely. And so I believe like the writing letter campaign is always the best move forward. And in this case, it's not so much about the quality of the message, but the quantity of the message. On that webpage, on our Bellevue Community League page about Eastglen Pool, there is even just some wording you can use, copy and paste, some advice and tips on how to actually write these letters. And the email addresses to our city councilors are there. I imagine, Mr. Caterina, you have received hopefully quite a few already, and hopefully you'll be receiving a lot more. But perhaps that's a good question for you, Mr. Caterina. What is the importance of writing letters to your local councilor? Why is that important?
Well, your views are important, and what I would suggest, I don't know if the letters that I've been receiving have been copied to all councillors, but that would be the strategy. Would make sure that all council is on those, and even if you have email addresses from Rob Smythe, for example, who's deputy city manager for that department, responsible for that. Adam, the interim city manager, to let him know as well too. That makes a big difference as well. But to have all council involved in the letters is the best way to go, not just to the ward councillor where everybody does it individually, is to have everybody well aware of it, and that's the best way to do it.
Perfect. And it's literally just as easy as sending any email, right? Like you just use your inbox, copy and paste the name.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think we got our first question. I think the person's name, is it Bamer, is set up to ask a question. Are you there with us?
Hi there. I keep getting tossed out. I'm sorry, but
No worries.
I'm an active user of both Commonwealth Rec Center and Eastglen. I love to swim laps. What I've noted, just a couple of things, is one, Commonwealth is seeing more and more usage, and as the Mutard lands be developed, we'll see more density there. I often go to Eastglen because I find it a more comfortable facility. I find it more safe, more walkable, which aligns to the city plan. And with the development of the exhibition lands, I think community-based pools like Eastglen are only going to have more value than less. And then finally, I think the pandemic has shown us that people do feel more safe in their own communities. They want to utilize amenities in their communities than rather going to the big monolithic large rec centers. And one of the decisions the city made this year was to shut Rundle Golf Course down. And in hindsight, I don't think that was a great decision, as we saw most golf courses experience probably the best years in terms of tee times that they ever had. So that being said, I think the pandemic will bring the viability to some of these community pools back to the forefront. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Tim.
I'm not seeing anybody else hand. Do we have anybody else?
I
who
have
wants to-
a Peter Maffey waving his hand. You can just unmute yourself there.
Sure, just a couple of quick comments. Huge thanks to Tony and Janis for being here. That really means a lot. Tony, we were really grateful for your support the last couple of times around, and we're really hoping we can count on that again this time. It's really good to have you here. We moved to Highlands 40 years ago, and we intentionally moved here so that we could bike to work, so that we could walk, and it's not an option for us. We were going 5 times a week to Eastglen. There are some specialized classes there that were really important. Aquamat, the only Aquamat classes in the city. And it's just not an option to drive somewhere to go to a pool. So if Eastglen closes, we're out. And it's been something that's been very important for us. The one thing that I would like to see come into the conversation, I completely understand the financial pressures on the city and the need to try to find little places here and there where dollars can be cut. But the pandemic, awful as it's been, has led to some benefits. It's led to people appreciating neighbors, neighborhoods. We've been walking for a long time in our neighborhood. We've never seen so many people out every night walking as we do now. And so there will be some changes 5 years from now that are legacies of the pandemic, that are good legacies. People will travel less. People will do more things in their communities. People will walk more. People want to walk for health and wellness. And just that understanding through the awfulness of the pandemic that health and wellness matter, and regular daily exercise is such a crucial part of that. I'd love to see that become a part of, what's our 5-year plan, short-term financial savings. 5 years from now, what are the people in these communities going to be doing now that they have gotten used to this really good thing of taking care of themselves every day?
First off, I have Carolyn Matthews, unless Tim, you had someone else.
I think, well, with Louisa, I think you guys had a question as well.
Okay.
There we go. This is Louisa's husband, Bob. I should mention that Eastglen is dear to me in that I actually watched it being built as I was a high school student there in the 60s. So I go back a long time to that. Louisa and I use the pool regularly. She swims at least 3 times a week and I at least twice. And I would like to echo some of Peter's comments about, community benefits. I did see a newspaper article where I don't know if the mayor was correctly quoted as saying, well, people from Highlands could walk to Commonwealth because it's so close. I don't think that's a 15-minute walk from my understanding. So it's important when public officials make comments like that they're based on fact rather than something they've heard somewhere. So I just wanted to say it's a wonderful little pool. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the big pools do, the exercise stuff, but for some of us, the swimming is the thing. And we keep seeing the same people there and we strike up conversations, so it becomes a community hub.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Tim, did you want to?
No, I think Carolyn was probably next.
Okay.
Hello, so thank you. I think, again, one of the uniquenesses about Eastglen is the fact that it's a saltwater pool. And Joe, in listening to you, I guess one of the concerns that I have, and it's also could put to Tony, is if Eastglen, like the proposal by the city, that it could go to someone in the private sector. My concern is if you take Eastglen out of the city envelope, it's a swimming pool. And what's the viability of someone being able to take it over privately just on insurance alone? So this isn't about maintenance. This isn't about staffing. This is simply just the insurance. And while it sits in the city envelope, then it's, you know, the insurance is spread over many recreational facilities. So I'm just putting it out there that could be something that you could bring up to city council, that asking for it to be put out to the private sector just on that point alone may not be viable.
Excellent. That's a really great insight. Thank you very much for that. Anyone else with any more questions? You can either.
Yeah, we got Corey waving. Corey, you want to hop in?
Wonderful, thanks. Hi, I'm Corey Longo. Happy to be here tonight. I live in Alberta Ave with my family, and we rely on our pool. We go to Commonwealth, and we rely on our pool so much. My kids, we were there all the time. And so if anybody said that they were going to close our community pool, I'd be up in arms, as would my family. My toddler would be really upset about it. So thanks so much for doing all the work that this community has done year after year. It's really appreciated. One thing I was going to suggest and just ask kind of what's been done on this is, so it's really strange because I've been talking to a lot of Ward Métis residents, and they're telling me that they go to Eastglen Pool all the time. But then in the news, I'm hearing that it's like underutilized is what they're saying. So one thing I was thinking about is like doing a membership drive. So next week we're discussing this at council. And I was thinking, is it possible to have, like, 50 people sign up, say, pledge a commitment saying, next year I will buy an annual pass, just to counter that narrative that it isn't being used. And then we could present it next week at council saying, look at all these people, and not just these people, but their families are reliant on this pool and this public service. So just wondering thoughts about that, if that's a possible strategy.
And actually, I might actually pass this one over to Joe, because I know he's worked a lot in terms of the numbers and sort of what we need as a community to provide the city of Edmonton to actually look at Eastglen as a sustainable facility. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to add to that about what you've come across in terms of that viability that way?
Thanks for bringing that up, Corey. And finally, I get to meet you over Zoom. Mona Marshall has mentioned you to me so many times. And membership is an elusive number, and that seems to be the big question mark in direct relationship to this cost recovery. The membership is down. We've asked many times, well, what is a suitable number? One of the more vague things we've received in an answer is, if you get the membership back to what it was before Commonwealth opened, then that could be okay, but that's not definitive. And I've even asked the question of the branch manager back in February of 2019. So we still don't know. The crux of it is, there's a general feeling I think there was some intent to close the Eastglen way back when Commonwealth opened in 2012. I think that was part of the plan. So any improvement in membership is a sign of strength. Unfortunately, there have been, Eastglen has had amenity problems. The very small amenities that we do have, the steam room is small, the whirlpool is small. That whirlpool is affectionately referred to by many, even some staff, as a residential grade pool. It's been out of service so much. When they first put it in, it had issues. It wasn't grounded properly. Somebody fell down the stairs because they didn't have a handrail down. And even recently, it's been out of service since mid-October because thankfully we have a pool manager there now who is, I don't think we've had any manager that's that supportive, but she noticed that there's been some leaking in it and for quite some time. So it's taken them till maybe just recently, from what I understand, they think they have the leak fixed, but that was a real drain on attendance because people, as much as they like the facility, they like the amenities. So if you look at the membership even now, I don't know in any of all of this if they recognize the outages and that sort of thing. So, Curta, to your question about, I think something that draws the attention to Eastglen, and if we can get away from this, people have given up. People are stopping by the pool and expressing their condolences. There have been that many fights over it, and people get weaker and weaker and weaker. Even my own support in the fight has kind of fallen away because people are saying, Joel, you got to stop this. You know, we no sooner finish one hearing, one proceeding, and you haven't stopped. You're continually saying we've got to take a fresh approach to this. How do we convince administration? Because the people that work at the pools, they greatly support it. I'm told that the branch manager, even Rob Smythe, they greatly support it, but the words of finance prevail, and it doesn't meet the numbers test. It's got to be closed. Get it off the tax support levy. It's such an easy pickings, low-hanging fruit that we have to really work on somehow on that. And membership, if we can spin it or get it around to where there's a positive view, now it's also negative. You know, it just says, the sign outside says facility closed. It doesn't even say temporary or anything like that. And so we've got to, we were also told that the reopening will happen in the order of the cost recovery ratio. Eastglen has, that means the percentage of your expenses that you recover through the revenue. So Eastglen, when it comes to that, and a lot of it is because of the amenities and other factors, that it can't compete. You know, there's no possible way. So the current plan is, we're told, and this is by the branch manager, will be reopened in the order of cost recovery ratio. So it's the lowest. Eastglen will be opened last. It's so vitally important that we get through this next phase of December 3rd, and then council's decision on the budget, whether that's the 9th and the 11th, or you know, as close as that is. We have to be so strong in our message that council keeps it open. And then what we tried to do previously is, you know, get something going that will draw attention and do something to highlight Eastglen and bring people back. And we haven't been successful in that.
Okay.
So, you know, that's a marketing, for those of you that are marketing people. When I proposed taking a different direction, I called it rebranding. And, you know, that's a whole nother debate, but we need to do something that does that and sends a whole positive message. It's the mood now is about as low as I've ever seen it. We were getting support. I was getting support before. Now it's, you know, we're done. That's the sentiment.
We do have 30 people tonight that look like they're all vouching to keep it open. I am cognizant of time, so we do have a few minutes. If we do go a few minutes over, I mean, that's life in a COVID world. We'll take it if people want to stick around to chat more. But I'm going to move over to Elizabeth Seitko, who's had her hand raised.
Hello, it's Elizabeth Sitko, but I understand the mispronunciation. I have a question about membership numbers, because when I get a facility pass, it's month to month, so I can bounce between Hardisty and Eastglen. So how do we actually get the numbers? Like, is it by attendance to Eastglen, or is it by how many people buy the pass or renew it at Eastglen? But it's like, but I have it automatically withdrawn. So how do you know? I'm really curious about, how do you know membership numbers?
And that's
I can answer that.
okay.
It's where you attend, where you use your pass, that counts on the attendance. It's not where you purchase it.
But again, that whole idea of membership numbers and keeping track of what using the data in order to influence that decision. Maybe I can just switch gears here over to Mr. Caterina, where perhaps do you have any insight at all from the numbers perspective from the city of Edmonton, or is that more administrative? Like what is it? What numbers do the administrators need to see in order for this to no longer be on the chopping block year after year?
Thanks for that. I don't have a specific number for you. Eastglen operates at about a 30 some odd % recovery rate. And Joe, you might have more information on that. So it is quite low given its age, its size, the fact that it's been under construction and maintenance over and over again. But the numbers that are being used are when it was opened before any of this was going on, obviously. So the numbers are basically at around 30 some odd % recovery. So every dollar that's spent, we get back 30 cents. That's sort of the simple math of it. One thing I wanted to remind people in that administration can propose whatever they want. And Joe, you mentioned a low-hanging fruit, and that we go through this every supplemental budget, spring and summer, every year for the 4-year budget. We ask them to find efficiencies and savings. They come back, and in some instances, they know that the low-hanging fruit, they'll throw it on the table knowing that council will not support administration's request for certain things. And Eastglen has been a good example of that. They keep throwing it on, and they'll throw it on again as they have this time around. And basically, they've satisfied council's ask for savings. That's what we ask them for. We don't ask them for specific savings, but we ask them to go through their departments and, for example, mandate of a reduction of 2%. So where they find that, this is what happens is some of these important things to the communities end up being on the table, and then they leave it up to council to make a decision on whether they want to go ahead with their recommendations or not. And we don't always go with their recommendations. What I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting in that, because there's 3 different areas of the city, Oliver and Scona, that are sort of in this pile, to get council, and this is just councillors, I'm going to argue for Eastglen, but do I argue for Scona and Oliver? I would say yes. If we do it individually, if someone says no to Eastglen, for example, well, my reaction was probably going to be no to, so it's either all or none. That's sort of where we are at this point now, was to give either of them all sort of another leg up to, and that's what I said before, this is fall supplemental, maybe the strategy, and we've got to see where that ends up in the discussion, the public hearing, and then the budget debates themselves, or maybe there's room in spring. Right now, the city might be really in a tough position. Come spring, if things are different somehow, somewhat, might be a better time to make those additional arguments, but not to close it off and make a decision. So we normally the strategy is we'll postpone the decision on pool closures until next spring supplemental. That way it leaves it open and we have another opportunity. I'm just saying that that's sort of to keep in the back of your mind that you might not want a decision because the decision this time around might be leaning towards closure.
Mhm.
So to get out of that, we move postponements of certain items to different budgets for rediscussion again. So those are sort of the strategies that we have to look at. The presentation on the 3rd, that's the first the public will get a chance to come and express their views on this. Then we go, once public hearing is done, then we actually go into deliberations. And that's complicated as well too. Some packages will come forward that are maybe just suggestions that someone on council, for example, would have to say, I move that we close these 3 facilities. Or somebody would have to say, I move that we don't. It's technicalities that go on there with the budget adjustments that we'll know better as we go through after the public hearing on where everything is set up.
I do have 2 people left, Louisa and Kyla. I'll let Kyla go first because she did have her hand up. Thank you very much, Mr. Caterina. That was great.
Hi all. So apologies, first of all, if I have an interruption. I have a 4-year-old who's buzzing around. He might come in. But I have a couple of comments. First, a question in regards to that 2017 report, where they committed to actually keeping Eastglen open and also provided a plan for moving forward. And I may have missed this already, again, because of said kiddo. But is there a reason why that was never implemented, given the amount of money that was likely spent on the public engagement process and the commitment to the community during a time when public engagement was a huge part of the city's emphasis and moving forward with the council initiative? So that's one question. And then my second question is, with also recently there was an accessibility policy passed with the city, and we know Eastglen has lots of stairs and lots of stuff within it that needs to be upgraded. And is that also part of the reason why they might want to close this facility without actually, working forward to improving it so that we can use it?
Those are all great questions. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone from the city that's like working in the facilities piece of it that can really comment on that, unless Joe or Tony have any background knowledge in that piece.
I do. This is Joe. Yes, accessibility has always been mentioned as an added supporting issue in relation to the numbers. So when I said numbers, everybody's so numbers focused, but accessibility is there as an issue. The thing is that most people manage, there is a main floor, a very small accessibility room. That's an issue. But regarding accessibility, we've been looking at that now a little bit more closely, because before the capital budget of just about $8 million included a revamping, bringing everything in the main floor, making them universal, expanding the pool, putting in a fitness center, putting in an all-purpose room. But we think for much less money, we can address a lot of that accessibility problem or issue in terms of the policy, get much closer to it with much less than the $8 million. We'll be lucky if you could do it for under $2 million if you don't go to adding a fitness center. But there may be a way of rejigging the space that we can even free up some space for a small, not a real intensive weight room, but one that's more oriented toward wellness, some of the basic things you might want and need.
Excellent.
So that's that. And sorry, the first part of the accessibility, what was the first part of the point?
Just why they didn't implement the plan when it was already done through public engagement and all those other things. I mean, the community spent a lot of time working towards what that pool could potentially look like. And I'm just curious what the justification for not implementing it was.
Well,
okay,
so that was in 2018, that public hearing, that was the budget process to affect the years 2019 to 2022. And that's when it was submitted. It was, as I mentioned earlier, it was prioritized by Citizen Services, by Rob Smythe and all of his team. And when it was all looked at by that central, I think it was a corporate strategy group, they call it, they generally refer to it as finance. but they did a program and services review. And Tony mentioned that, percent of cost recovery, it was lower than the others. And that was more of that low hanging fruit. And that's when the financial troubles just sort of started to emerge with the city, and the early warning signs were there. So they were being much more, cautious with the budget. But on the other hand, I 1000% support what you're saying. Just recently, as a matter of fact, like they're spending with $70 million of a $75 million expenditure is being borrowed to upgrade Peter Hemingway. Then right next to it at Coronation Park, there's that bicycle facility. And that was approved by City Council at $112 million some time ago. And then just recently, it was discovered that somebody at city administration, somebody made a mistake. Oops, there's another $46 million that council wasn't aware of. That's now been added to the budget so that facility can proceed. So it's hard to still accept, we're talking about rounding when it comes to Eastglen and Scona and Oliver. Why that propensity when there are so many other areas to address? And hopefully when I do my presentation on December 3rd, I will cause enough, now that the intention is there to the numbers, enough understanding and even doubt in people's mind. And the going away question should be, why are you even looking at this? And I would hope that council's direction to administration would be clear. Quit looking for the $1.4 million here. There are so many other areas that with very little effort, you can get to $8 million in a flash. That's the point. Those are the points I'm making.
Yep. No, that sounds great. Louisa, I'm still give me 1 second. Kyla, give me 1 second. I just wanted to give Mr. Caterina a chance. If there's anything you wanted to add in regards to that final report that maybe Joe hadn't touched on that you wanted to add, and then promise Louisa and Kyla, we will get back to you. Thank you for your patience, Louisa.
Yeah, no, with that, I think the questions were good. Why didn't they just proceed with the plan that was in place? And that I'll tell you what, 2019 things were bad enough, and that was pre-pandemic. Finances were dire, unemployment, oil and gas, you name it. And once COVID hit, I've never seen it before. I don't think anybody's ever seen the situations we're in. For give you an example, we deferred taxes from June 31st, saying you don't have to pay it, but you'll have to pay in September. Fingers were crossed that when we got to August, September, that there was actually enough taxes paid to continue to run the city on a day-to-day basis. So just so you have an idea of sort of the enormity of it, and that it's $430 million a month. That's what operating, never mind capital, never mind the cost of borrowing and the grants and the pay as you go. That's just month to month, $430 million to run this city and to provide the services that are here. Whether you like the services or you don't like the level of service, that's what it costs. So come June 30th this year, fingers were crossed that people would actually pay their taxes, or else we didn't know where we were going to go by September. If people hadn't paid. Fortunately, 65-70% of people paid when they could have, and the rest has been coming in. So that's sort of the scope of things. So the plans are made. COVID hit, and we have to make adjustments to some of the plans. Some are deferred, some might be canceled. And just go back to Coronation Pool, just so you have some background on how budgets are done as well too. The $112 million for Coronation is a number put out, but all our numbers that we put out from administration always has a starting 50% margin. It could be 50% more or 50% less. It's never less. There's a contingency always built in there, because to build these large projects, it's not within a month or a week or even a year. the cost of borrowing money, the length of time it takes to get all the planning done. It could be a year, it could be 2, could be 3. It could hit a next cycle of budgets. Like all these things come into play. The cost of concrete, the cost of steel. Those are all things that are put into contingencies that could up the prices on virtually anything that the city does. So that's all put into the strategy of it. So Joe has got, I think, in going in the right direction. And as I mentioned right at the start of this, health, the scale of 1.4 million overall, and that's all 3 facilities. The 26 million, Joe's correct. That's for all 3 facilities. So Oliver needs 17, Eastglen needs 8, 2 or much less. So, but I guess the point I want to make is that if someone thinks that Eastglen is going to remain open and Oliver is going to close, and you're going to get support from councillors, that's going to be really, really tough, and vice versa. So it has to be coordinated as a group that they all remain open or not. That's sort of the strategy that has to be put forward.
Thank you. Kyla, I hope that answers your questions. Are you good?
I have one more thing. With the Community League, I'm happy to do a flyer drop to all my neighbors to say, hey, if you want to keep Eastglen open, here's some tools. So I'll just put that out there. And one of the ways we could maybe do that is through a pledge to using it, whatever else, something like that. So just to put that out there as an idea for action forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Louisa, thank you for your patience. We will.
I have a new meeting soon, so that's why I was getting impatient, actually. I wanted to add something to the financial question. And all these numbers that we've been hearing about, I think I would like to put them in a different perspective. And that is, and I'll give you a few examples of people I know. One who has severe arthritis, who has been taking exercises, and who now cannot do that, cannot walk, and he's looking at it as a knee replacement. I think all of you probably know people, many, and sure, it's wintertime, we can walk. There are people who can't walk for reasons of arthritis or whatever, but also the danger of slipping and falling. Now, if all these people go for hip replacements or break a knee, you know where they're going to be? They're going to be in emergency. They're going to be in our hospital system. Our hospital system, as we all heard Tuesday from our premier, it's frightening. And so I'm begging for us to think of finances beyond the 2 million, the 17, whatever it is, and to think if we could keep people well, then I know that we shouldn't be keeping people well just because of the money. But if we can make the argument that financially it's going to help us to keep these places open, it's not a cost, it's a benefit. And I wish that we would focus a little bit more on when you have a healthy community and healthy neighborhood, healthy bodies of people who are older, that it's a benefit to everybody. It's not a cost.
That's actually a really great point and insight. Are you going to be speaking on the 3rd? Because I think
I teach, so I have to see what time it is.
I believe it's at 9:30 is when it starts. But I mean, in terms of
what day?
It's on December 3rd.
What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
No, I teach Thursday mornings. But anyway, we can touch base with me about that. I'm happy to make a passionate plea about that because I know people.
Yep.
I know people who are now on a waiting list for a knee replacement because they can't do the stuff in the pool. And people are in cancer treatments. They are desperate for having this kind of exercise. Yep. So we have to think about this more than dollars and cents. As you know, we got to think of the bigger picture. I know that healthcare is not a municipal matter, but this is a community, right? Yep. And I think this is a really, got to think the bigger picture.
That's excellent.
And some way I can make that presentation, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, even just getting your notes through an email if you want to, if you can't be there in person, you can certainly send us an email and we will see if we can get someone to speak on your behalf.
And to add to that, my husband and I have been going to Clairview and very impressive. They have wonderful protocols in place. They really, they're so kind and so helpful, and they try to make it work. But to try to get into that pool is almost impossible because everyone wants to get in there. So that should be an indication that when you close all these smaller pools, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I am going to be aware of the time. I'm going to hard cap us at 8:30 if anyone wants to stick around till then. But I noticed there might be a couple hands up. Tim, did you want to? Maybe we'll take maybe one or two more questions, and then we will we'll call it.
I'll just say, Alright, we've seen your hand up, so you can rest. We'll get to you.
So sorry, Tim. Who's next?
Oh, I guess we can jump to Elvira, but I thought you had somebody before them.
No.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. We're ready for you. You can rest. Oh, but you're on mute. So. Oh.
Sorry. First of all, I'd like to say that we've used the Eastglen Pool at least 5 times a week prior to it closing. Kids were enrolled in swim lessons and junior lifeguard. In the summer, they went there with their friends almost on a daily basis. It's been a huge boon for us to have that in our neighborhood, for the kids to be able to just walk there on their own and use it. We've been trying to use the Bonnie Doon one. I prefer that. I don't like Clairview at all. I like that Bonnie Doon is still small comparative to Clairview, but it requires for us to drive there. I don't drive. I can't bike there because of all the construction, and now it's winter time, and it's not safe. But it's for a family of 4 to go swimming. It's impossible to book for 4 people to go. Every time I've called to book, I always have them put in that how hard it is for any of us to get in. So we have to go either, if we're lucky, my husband and I, so maybe once a month we've been able to get into the pool. I always put and ask them to consider opening Eastglen because it is a swim lane. And that's what we're interested in, is the lane swim. And so every time I try to book or I speak with somebody, I make that suggestion to the importance of having this community pool and how many people I knew and met through the pool that live in the neighborhood that I see walking around, how many people utilized it. And so I think our community league needs to maybe make a stronger push to, especially in lieu of all these new families moving into the neighborhood, to say, hey, we have a pool right here in our neighborhood. Let's use it so that we can keep it open. And then have everybody, not just a flyer drop, but actually commit, whether it's a letter, handwritten letter, and we print them out and just get them to sign it so that, yeah, because people get complacent and they get tired. And I get that. And I hear you, Joe. It does. There's so many little fights that we have to fight all the time for everything that we believe in and are passionate about. But I don't think that health and wellness is something that we should have to negotiate. And if you're talking about health and wellness and communities and walkability, you know what, stick to it. And it's something that we need to drive home with City Council and make them realize that we're quite committed to it and that we do want it. And I think that that's what we have to really pursue. And I think as a community, we need to have everybody start going out there. And maybe, Kyla, we go out there and get people to write it, or we write the letters and they sign it so that it's ready, done, and there's no skin off their backs. And then Robert has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more, I guess, point into your defense of Eastglen. I'm sure all of you are aware that there's a female-only swim there on a regular basis. And I think I just did a quick search online looking for women's-only swimming in Edmonton, and it says Eastglen Pool is the only facility offering it. I've seen people come and go there. A lot of ladies are Muslim ladies, and I'm sure the fact that the pool is very private, no one can kind of gaze in. I know I've made a mistake of trying to go there when the female swim's been on and getting waved away from the locked front door. I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was on right now. So one more, I guess maybe one more arrow in your quiver to in pro of keeping Eastglen open is that it's a very secure pool for women who'd like to have privacy and to swim in the company of other women without having the danger of a man just tripping into the facility. So I just want to make that point.
We'll have, Tim, was there anyone else? I have Peter waving his hand there. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And we should probably wind it down after Peter for to make.
I just had a wrap up kind of question. Could somebody remind us what the possibilities are for bringing something to council on the 3rd, first of all? And secondly, I think if there are 30 people on this call and everybody can write all councillors and the mayor, and then find 3 other people to do that, we'd have 90 letters going to, and that would be a large number.
Absolutely. It's a very good point. Thank you. I personally have one last question, and I'm going to address this to Mr. Caterina. Is there any opportunity for a moratorium on Eastglen where we can like be off that chopping block for like a 3-year, 5-year period? Does that ever happen in your experience?
Moratoriums have happened, certainly, but never in this type of circumstance. The last moratorium that we put through involved Alberta Avenue, Macaulay, Queen Alex, on the number of non-market housing that could go up. We gave them a 5-year reprieve that nothing else could go in because of the saturation level. So if you're thinking about moratorium or plebiscite or anything like that, this is not a case that would fit that criteria. Normally, it would have to be citywide issue, something that would apply to more than just a few neighborhoods. I just wanted to comment on the last lady on the health, and this is where Janis, you might have a hand in. We make that argument all the time that the health benefits save the health system, judicial system, all sorts of systems that unfortunately we are not in control of. But we make that argument on a daily basis that if we do this, it'll save you, the province, this. And well, we haven't gotten very far in making that. Well, we can make the compelling case, and we've made it often, but we have had no reaction. So that the argument is a very good argument, and it should be made. And that's what I started off with: health. Use health as your sort of the one thing that you're going to bring forward, and tie it to that, tie it to the province. From the infrastructure part of it, and that the city in the financial part of it, the province actually reduced MSI transfers to municipalities again, which left us in about a $60 million hole. Things that we had planned to do, that budget was reduced from the province, transferred to the city. So we started off minus 60 right off the top. So, we have the challenges as well too, that we depend on grants and transfers from the province. And if they make reductions, we have to either absorb them in property tax in continuing the service level that you want without that funding, which means an increased tax. That's where we get money. It's a antiquated system. Property tax is not the best way to run anything based on that, but we do require both the transfers and the grants from the province and the feds. And anytime they make adjustments, we end up taking the hit. And usually we want to continue services that are already in place and enhance them. And the decision's always made that we'll absorb it, but there's a cost. And what we see now, I think that absorption of property taxes, or the willingness to pay a little bit more, even if it's for a really good reason, is probably gotten to its limit now, where people need a reprieve on that side. So there's other strategies, and we're working with the province all the time. And Janis, this is sort of where you can come in and make that argument to the sitting government that, all the things the municipalities do for health or whatever is actually a benefit to you, that you don't have to spend it on healthcare. You don't have to spend it on policing. You don't have to spend it on, so.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. And I'll be super fast, but just because you mentioned me there, you're right. And I promised Mike that I wouldn't get partisan, so I will try to avoid doing that. But certainly it's challenging, right? The municipalities are in a very tough position right now because of the impact of the cuts from the province. Like you said, MSI is just one example. And so yeah, obviously I will continue to advocate. There's a new municipal affairs minister that I have a decent relationship with, but unfortunately there's a bigger issue of a government making short-sighted decisions. So, but to that point, I would also say don't hesitate to include me in any of your correspondence as well, because I don't mind sharing that information with the UCP government, and I can also table letters in the legislature as well. What effect it will have, I mean, that's to be determined, but Tony's absolutely right. This isn't just on the city. This is an issue that's provincial as well. So thanks.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess just to wrap up, I just want to remind everyone there are currently only 22 people, as I called the city clerk desk this afternoon to see how many people were signed up to speak on December 3rd, and there are only 22 people. So there's certainly opportunities for your voices to be heard. I think we all did a really great job here of getting a nice range of voices and several different reasons why. For those who have their video on, can I just get a raise of hands for everyone who's going to be writing a letter to help support Eastglen? How many do we got? Because if your hand's up, that means you got to do it. There you go. And I love that idea of also convincing 3 other people to do it too. I highly recommend peer pressure, but that's just me. So that kind of is it for us. It's 8:30. I promised you a heart out at 8:30. Thank you everybody for this. I will be saving the recording and posting it online. You can find more information and updates on the Bellevue community website, and what you have because you've made it this far. So Tim, anything else to add?
No, just thanks everybody. We made it. We had staying power. We lasted longer than we thought we would. So just appreciate everybody's support, and we'll make a go of this thing.
Right on.
Oh, Richard, go ahead.
Just wanted to say thanks to Mike for doing a great job as moderator tonight, and thanks Tim for all your work, and thank you everybody on behalf of Bellevue for joining in tonight. It was really good, and I just want to ask Mike and Tim to stay on so we can do some debriefing here at the end of the meeting.
I saw Vanessa had her hand up as well.
Oh,
Vanessa, you want to chime in there while at the bell?
For a bit. I just wanted to ask Mike and Tim and Richard if there's a way that you can connect some of us. I really liked Kyla's idea, and I think I'll hear I echoed some of the same thoughts. So if there's a way to connect some of us who are interested in doing like a mail drop or collaborating on some of these sort of actions, that would be awesome.
Sure. If you want to send us an email, Kyla, if both of you just want to send an email to us in Bellevue, we can connect you that way. Breaking some rules to share everyone's contact info in this type of space, but if you're interested to connect with others, email us and we'll do our best to get everybody together.
Well, and I think I just want to add too, I think Vanessa, it's a good point, and I think after tonight, I mean, there's a lot of work and we've got the third coming up rather quickly, but I think we're probably going to be reaching out. I certainly will be reaching out to Kyla. I lean on her a bit, but and certainly we'll reach out to you because we need many hands makes light work, and we've got a good enthusiastic group tonight, and I really want to thank Tony and Janis for being here. I mean, it's very encouraging. 30 people out tonight with a central goal in mind, and I think we can do lots together. So we're going to spend some time tonight figuring out a strategy, and certainly we'll keep you in mind, Vanessa, and reach out to Kyla, because the more we can do between now and the 3rd is going to be better for us. So thanks for that.
Okay. Right on. Well,
hi, it's Mona here.
Yep.
Sorry for the last minute input, but I'm on the committee with Joe and Helen for Eastglen, and we have a huge email list already of people that were at the consultation meeting 5 years ago. So we've got a lot of contact information and whatnot set up, and that would be really easy to include everyone in that and hence work together from a bigger group.
Yeah, if you want to
add to
Just an
that?
email with where they can find that information, and I'll post that so you can start building that up a little bit more.
Can I just suggest an online version of the pledge too, instead of like a handwritten one, just considering COVID and because we've got a week to do this? I have contacts that could set that up pretty easily for us. And then I just want to say I'm scheduled to speak on the Thursday. So I've got 5 minutes. So if Louisa wanted to make a video, and I could certainly put that in my presentation too. So please share my contacts as well. Thank you.
Yeah, will we have everyone's contact on Zoom? Once the meeting's over, we have no way of retaining everyone's contact.
Well, we do. Everyone essentially who is here should have been subscribed to the mail out that we sent. So we'll follow it up that way. If you aren't on the mail up, you can just go to our website and subscribe to our mail out, and then we'll update everyone shortly based on this discussion and many more discussions to come.
Perfect.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Big shout out to Tony Caterina and Janis Irwin for spending the time to talk us through that. And big thanks to Joe as well for his continued support. It's really much appreciated. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.